And there we go. We're live, and sorry for the laughter there. Joe and I are having a great time here preparing for our talk today. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Doing well out here in beautiful Loveland, Colorado. If you're joining us, good morning to you as well. Duncan, good morning. Good to see you, sir. This is the Food Safety Chat Live, and this is a fun little thing we do every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain, which is my time, 10 a.m. Eastern, which is Joe's time, and we talk all things food safety. So every week we bring on an expert in food safety, and we live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we talk about a topic and we discuss it with you. And I think that's an important part of the food safety chat. I know Joe would agree too, in that we're not here to just lecture to you. We're here to impart some of the things we've learned, mostly through painful experience, and share that with you on how to improve your systems and make your life better. Because food safety, as we all know, is not a point of competition, right? We're all in this together. If one company has a recall, we all suffer because of that in the eyes of the public. So glad you're here to learn from us, and kind of covering it, right? I think I'm kind of hitting all the highlights here today this morning. So of course, Joe, if you've watched the chat here before, you'll know Joe Laino. He is a super senior food safety consultant. That's a new title I just gave him. Super duper.
Impressive. I like that.
It is. It's nice. You should get a raise for that.
I should. I'll drop that note. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And he's with Comprehensive Food Safety. And I understand as well, here, and we'll put the link in here at some point, but you're doing a course here in May. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
What's that on?
So we run a full series of all food safety related trainings, and we have a course coming up. It's a public course, and everything now is done virtually, as you can imagine, on internal auditing. So we'll talk today about the needs, and we're going to focus primarily on SQF and BRC, as those are the most popular schemes. We'll talk about what their positions are on internal auditor training. So we'll get to that.
That is absolutely perfect. So, man, we've got a prompt group here. This is lovely. So, Bryan out in San Diego, nice to have you join us at this early hour. I made Bryan get up early last week. He was our guest host last week, and so he was up at 7 a.m. So that is greatly appreciated. Tammy, always good to see you. Aaron, Martin, this is great. We're getting a lot of people on here who show up every week, and thank you, everybody. We really appreciate that. That makes this worthwhile. Martin, good to see you in sunny Phoenix. And John, good to see you again, another San Diego person. Oh, no, he's saying to Bryan he misses San Diego. And Tim up in Minneapolis. And that's right, guys. So part of this, and this is what's kind of cool too, and you see these conversations develop, is people answer each other's questions in the chat, which is super cool. My assistant Renee is on here as well, and so he'll be plugging some links in during the conversation here to let everybody know what's going on. So appreciate that. And before we get started, please, everyone, join Joe, super senior consultant, and I in our morning beverage of choice. So please join us.
Just as long as nobody makes fun of my Jets. We'll be fine.
Hopefully, you got that in the discount bin.
Wow.
Ooh. Austin has joined us as well. Always good to see Austin. So, oh boy. Tara, good to see you. Wow, God, this is a great crowd. This is an important topic, right? I think something that's really overlooked, Joe, internal auditing, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I mean, if you're sitting in the quality manager chair in a plant and you're at a GFSI company or ISO or whatever, and you have to put together an internal audit program, oh boy, right? It's worse than going to the dentist, isn't it?
True story. And what I'd like to talk about today is not necessarily how to conduct your internal audit, because I think that's too wide of a topic for an hour. But the importance of it, I'd like to speak about what is what's SQF and BRC's position on internal auditing, the training that's involved to become internal auditing. But then I want to spend as much time as we can focusing on the value of your internal audit program, because throughout my years in industry and having worked in facilities that were both SQF and BRC facilities, a well-run and a meaningful internal audit program is such an important tool, not just in your audit score. Like, audit scores are good. And I think last time I was on, we talked about a little bit about food safety culture. And I think that your internal audit program, if it's firing on, excuse me, on all cylinders, can do nothing but help your levels of food safety compliance and food safety culture.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I think that your internal audit program is a good leading indicator of how robust your system is. It's kind of like going to the doctor, right? And if you walk in the door and you're 100 pounds overweight, it's a pretty good indicator the tests aren't going to go too well.
Right.
And I think that's very similar with internal audit as well. It's key, right? And I think a lot of people look at it as something they have to get through, and it's not. It's a robust, important part of your system from a couple of different perspectives. And I know that I've done my share of auditing, and you're a veteran in that area, is if you go in and you look at the internal audit program, Joe, and all of it is jammed into that month right before the audit, it's not good.
Correct. And in fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because BRC, and in BRC it's clause 341. It actually states that you have to spread out your internal audit program throughout the course of the year. As a BRC auditor, if the BRC auditor comes in and sees you've lumped it into the last 60 days before the audit, that'll absolutely be a non-compliance, a non-conformance.
It should be definitely. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the standard under 254 under SQF, which I've got here, it's not very long, right? I printed this out with spacing. It's half a page, right? It's not a lot of stuff that they're talking about here, right? So you have to have a program. You have to audit your system. You have to have evidence. You have to have corrective actions. You have to communicate it to senior leadership. People have to be trained in how to do audits. Right. And they also put in here too with version 9 GMPs, right? You need to do your GMP audits as well.
Yes.
So it's not saying a whole lot here, but we recognize that right away as classic plan, do, check, act, right?
Yeah. And I think I with both SQF and BRC, what I appreciate is they don't dictate exactly how you need to accomplish it. Every facility, and even if you're a corporation with 6, 8, 10 locations, you can't run your internal audit program the same in plant A as you do in plant B, because they're different people, different lines, different processes, different products. So both standards allow that flexibility. Now, how you get there is usually not always as important as the end product, right?
Right.
So as long as you're following a standard, and frankly, most of the clients I work with and I deal with, and certainly a vast majority of the audit sites that I'm involved with, they just use the audit checklist. And frankly, it's there. It's a publicly available document. To me, it makes the most sense to just use the audit checklist, because that's what you're being held accountable to.
Yeah.
And not only is it the most thorough approach, but now it helps you guarantee that you're not going to overlook those yearly things, your water testing and your metal detection validation and your food defense threat assessment and your food fraud. So by following the checklist, it helps you to be as thorough as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And the checklist is a good point, because with the standard, right? So if you're a GFSI standard, you're benchmarked and you update these at least every 3 years, and they put new stuff in there, right? You may think you know it, but they sneak little things in, right? So for example, you've mentioned that there's food fraud and food defense. You need to test those programs now. It's not enough just to have it. You have to test it annually. And as the auditor's reading through there, if you're reading the same thing the auditor's reading, you're going to catch that.
Yeah, definitely. And by following the checklist, if you think about it, we'll just use SQF as an example. So you have 2.1 through 2.9 and 11. We'll just use module 11, 11.1 through 11.8. So that's basically 17 elements that have to be evaluated throughout the course of the year. Now, if there's, in following BRC's directive that it has to be spread out, which I think is the only way to do this, if you have 17 elements to examine throughout a 12-month rolling period, it basically means you have to do only 2 a month. And I don't know how you have time as an internal auditor or a QA person, food safety manager. I don't know how you'd have time to lump it all in the last 3 months of your audit year. But by setting up a schedule and doing, 2 or 3 a month, maybe next month you'll just do 1 because I'm ahead of pace. It also allows you time to more efficiently work on the corrections and the corrective actions and your preventive steps going forward. It allows you to space it out to really be more livable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so part of this too, right, is I think the hidden benefit with internal audits, and I talk about this quite a bit as well, right, is we have in the quality world our technical skills, which is what we're talking about now, but also the management and the people side of things. I think what a lot of people forget, Joe, is that your internal audit program is a way to teach everybody else in the facility what this whole SQF thing is about, right? We're steeped in it. We're dealing with it every day and doing all these things. If you're the maintenance manager, you're not, right? You understand you need a PM program and these type of things, but beyond that, you understand your role and you probably don't have the bigger picture in mind. This is a great way to teach the organization about SQF, right? We're always complaining that, oh, we're so siloed and nobody else cares about quality about me. Well,
right.
Teach them.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, almost like we knew we were going to segue to this next topic. And that's, I think every successful facility, and I'm sure everybody here on the call takes this approach, but you need to have that multidisciplinary. I'm just drinking water, not coffee yet, so I've got to kind of ease into my big words. Your multidisciplinary approach. Your quality leader, your food safety leader should not be the only person on this committee. You must have your maintenance team, your sanitation leadership. I mean, there's places I know that have their HR manager involved on the internal audit team.
Yes.
Purchasing, why would purchasing not be on your internal audit team? They're buying the stuff that you're using. So to have, and many eyes are better. Was that saying many hands make light work? Right. Get 5, 6, 8 people on your team from different departments, because everybody's going to see things differently. And that's a great thing.
And you made a super important point there. And I want to really emphasize that because, part of what always amazes people is, coming from corporate quality, I would go and visit my plants and things like this. And I would be walking through and I would see something and I'm like, what's that? And everybody would be like, oh, right, it's a temporary repair or what have you, right? Something that's not right. And everybody would say, oh my goodness, you're so amazing for helping us fix these things. And I'm like, no, it's just, I'm a different set of eyes. I come in here to the facility, I look at it differently than you do. You're here every day, right? The human brain, that's how it just functions, right? It's why magicians are good, right? They're able to do something here, but they're really the trick is over here, right? Yep. And they distract you. And you've seen these studies, right, where you think when you're looking at something, you're looking at everything in front of you. You're not, right? You're looking at a tiny little speck and moving this around because your brain can't process all that information.
Right.
It's like this classic video that we've all seen of, watch the dancing girl, right? There's a girl dancing in the front. And then at the end of the video, it says, did anybody notice the guy in the gorilla suit in the background? And you go back and rewatch it and you're like, oh my God, right? And that girl is just standing there, right, in full plain view, and you do not see him.
How does that go?
Maybe there's something in my coffee this morning. I don't know.
Now, we should also address the fact that what if you don't have the luxury of having, 100 people in your facility or 200? Yeah. What if one of my colleagues has a client, they have like 5 people in the whole company and they just got SQF certified, and how do you manage your internal audit program when you are the quality director and the purchasing manager and the head paper shredder, and it's interesting because SQF 2542 says staff. We'll talk about the training part of it, but where practical, staff conducting internal audits shall be independent. Okay, right. And it's interesting that the specific wording in BRC doesn't allow for that leeway. 342. under BRC. It says that they shall be independent.
Mm.
So, if you are a BRC facility or you're interested in going the BRC route, and you're a 2 or 3 person operation, maybe you're a microbrewery and there's only 3 or 4 people working in the whole, you may have to figure out some ways around that, and maybe have an outside consultant come in, work with your team, and be part of the internal audit process. The code shouldn't punish you because you've only got 5 people in your corporation.
Right.
But I think the important thing is, where practical, you don't audit your own function.
And I like that. I'm glad that Leanne put that in there into the SQF code. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can't. But the rationale behind why that's in place is really important, right? It's the new eyes rule. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're auditing your own stuff, you're going to be either consciously or unconsciously hesitant to ding yourself, right? You're going to read through a procedure and say, well, that's amazing. This is exactly what I do. And those hidden biases, it's I've got memes on my brain this morning, right? It's like you see those funny videos of parents asking children to write a work instruction on how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? Yeah. And the results are hilarious because of the hidden assumptions that the children bring into the process, that the parents then have an absolute blast making fun of, and the kids just become super frustrated because they can't. Well, you know what I mean? Well, no, I don't.
No, I really don't. And years ago, I'm a certified adult educator, and years ago, when I was going for my state licensing, I had to do that very same scenario to a group full of evaluators on how to make a PBJ. And by about 3 minutes in, I was babbling and drooling like, I said, all right, well, you take the bread out of the bag. And they're like, yes. I'm like, well, what kind of bread? I'm like, well, it could be white bread, whole wheat bread. Well, how do you open the bag? So you have to write these policies and carry these out as if you have to spell it out step by step. Duncan raised a good point that if you have very few employees, BRC does expect you to have outside independent eyes, and that is correct.
Yep, absolutely. And you have to have that independent look at it. And Austin asked a question earlier about what I had held up, and this is I printed out. I just printed out the section of the code from SQF 254 on internal audits. If you want a copy of the entire code, you can go to sqfi.com and download that. It's free, which is great. And that illustrates a point, right? Is you always start, and this is the way we always prepare for these food safety chats. You start at the top of the hierarchy. What are the rules of the game, right? So when someone is looking at a process, or you're devising a methodology, what are they going to look at? And you said it too, Joe, right? Read through the checklist. What are the questions that the auditor is going to ask? That's how you need to prepare. That's how you need to look at it.
Absolutely. And so I said before, and this is just strictly my opinion. Others may, and if others have other ideas, please, by all means, type them in. I just feel that the audit checklist is one of the most efficient means of carrying out the program. Some facilities I've seen, like they'll take for example, the SQF checklist, and they'll remove some of the stuff in module 11 that's, floor GMP based observation stuff that they'll want to focus on program efficiencies. You can really do it however you like. As long as you can prove to the auditor that you have evaluated all 17 parts of the audit check, of the audit standard, and that you've thoroughly addressed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you need to hit them all, right? It doesn't say in the so you need to hit all the different sections of the code. It doesn't say that you need to hit every document in every section of the entire program, right? Audits are meant to be, you're spot checking things, right? You need to look at all the different headings, but you don't need to do every single document.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And hi, Corey. I didn't see that you were on. What I'd like to shift to now, if it's okay, is I want to talk a little bit about the training that would be required. And then I really want to spend time talking about the outputs of the internal audit process. So GFSI says that the person conducting the internal audit, or the staff conducting internal audits, shall be competent in internal audit procedures. What does that mean? What does that mean? There is a fair bit of debate, and I've got my own opinion, but there's a fair bit of debate that within the curriculum of the SQF practitioner course, whether it does or does not provide the proper compliance with internal auditor training. And you can ask some people, they'll say, yes, it does. Our company's position is that the practitioner training does not provide the sufficient and required competencies, because it does really just kind of skim over, doesn't go into an in-depth look at the techniques for internal auditor training. So, as a consultant, I have my position. As an auditor, my position is I would like to see an internal auditor certificate, because then that lets me know you've taken the training to understand, because there are a lot of techniques that are involved. It's not just, yep, here's the checklist. Okay, that's good. Yeah, here's, that's not so good. Maybe we'll make it an opportunity for improvement. There are a lot of nuances and skill sets that you have to learn to be I don't want to use the word good, a competent internal auditor.
Yeah, and auditing's a skill set, right? We all know that. Yeah, we've had in the course of our careers, as we've been audited by other people and things like this. There's good ones, right? And there's ones that aren't so good, right? There's skills associated with that. So a couple of questions here. We'll get to these, but I did have a question for you. So part of what I would do, I'm curious whether you would like this or not, is I took a train-the-trainer approach. So we developed our own internal auditor training program that we could run people through internally. So here's how you audit, and we would go through example documents and these type of things to teach people. That way we could quickly get people into the system, and we wouldn't have to wait for courses and things like this.
Exactly. And I think train-the-trainer works well. I don't necessarily, and again, this is just my take on it. When I audit to the code. I don't interpret the code. I don't make my own opinion when it comes to evaluating the code. 2542 says staff conducting internal audit shall be trained and competent in internal audit procedures. That does not say they have to take a certificate course. It does not say they have to show me a certificate. Okay. But I would like to see, how did you learn to become an internal auditor? Did you just YouTube it? Which may not be the worst idea. Have you taken an ISO rated internal auditor course? Did you take a food related did you go through, as you just mentioned, Bryan, did you go through a trainer type of a course? I have lots of facilities that are, multi-site corporate operations. I have one in mind. They have 180 locations in the US. They have one person on staff. He is the trainer, and he trains everybody in the hunt. Okay, fine. But it's to Mark Dargay's point and to Corey's point, there is auditor variation, unfortunately. And this is, someday we'll do a thing about auditing and auditors, and I'm going to get berserk because I've been auditing now for a long time, and I see things and I hear things. And Mark and I had a conversation just this morning about something that an auditor said at a client location that I can't believe came out of their mouth. And it makes me berserk, Yeah. So I'm less bunged up on where they got the training or what, but just that, can they prove to me competence in the technique?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we've both been behind the scenes on this. I ran a certification body. I was on the SQF Technical Advisory Council, and auditor calibration, as we call it, is very, very difficult because auditors are people, right? And trying to get moving people toward that mean within the middle of at least, approaching things from a similar perspective is challenging.
Yeah, I agree. So, to the extent of 3.4.2 and what is it, 2542, prove to me that you're competent. And that may not be something that I can answer there on the spot. I may have to go back and answer that question once I've evaluated the integrity of the program.
Right. Well, and any good auditor, right? We'll stick with this example. So you're doing, let's say, an SQF audit, and you come in and you're looking at 254, and you're going to look for evidence, right? And you're going to say, okay, I would like to look at 3 internal audits from this year. I want this one, and this one.
Right.
And I would like to talk with the people who perform these audits. Right? And you pull them in and you walk through the process with them and see how they went through the audit and what they did, right? Part of that competence, right? Plan, do, check, act of figuring out, are these people competent? Right? And that's the auditor's job within that area. So the training piece, is a major challenge, and getting enough people, right? So let's for the basis of this conversation, let's assume we have an operation with at least, some resources within there. It's not you and your mom running the business. So within that, one of the important things that I think a lot of quality managers and facilities make the mistake of is they put themselves on the internal audit team and they do internal audits. No, you manage the internal auditors. You don't perform the internal audits. Your job as a quality manager, the person running the program, is to step back and do the training and create the schedule and build the teams and review the corrective actions and all the things that need to happen within that. And if you're down in the weeds trying to scramble and do the audits, you're checking your own work, and that's not a good thing to do.
100 years ago, I was a volunteer fireman and a volunteer EMT, and I went through all that leadership training. I was the chief of my department, and what you just mentioned, the chief. You'll never see a fire chief in the building fighting the fire. Mm-hmm. They stand outside, and they're in one spot. They stand in one spot, so everybody knows where they are. Mm-hmm. And it's the exact analogy here. If you're leading the team, you shouldn't. Unless things are coming off the rails, you should not, as a routine, as you said, be in the weeds. Take that step back, be in that command location, whatever you're going to call it, your office, and be sure that people know how to contact you and know how to reach you. That's an excellent point. Right.
Excellent. Yeah. So then you divide up all the different sections, 2-1, 2-2, et cetera, through the course of the year. You assign teams, you train them, you make sure that they get their work done, right? Because part of this too is it's the old herding cats analogy, right? People are busy. And if you have, let's say, the procurement manager and the maintenance manager on an audit team, by the way, you should, if you can, right? The standard doesn't say this, but this is a good practice. You should have 2 people on a team, right? So they can bounce information off each other and they can help each other out with this process. And they're then assigned to that. And your job as the quality manager is, okay, the procurement and the maintenance manager have been assigned to do 2.2 management review. You guys need to get this done by the end of the month. I expect to see the report back a week before that. And if not, I'm going to be bugging you, right?
Absolutely. I wanted to raise another point, but there's a flurry of questions coming in. I just saw Cheryl's question pop in.
Yeah.
How do very small plants handle this? 5 total. And as I said, you don't have the luxury, Cheryl, of having 250 people in your. Well, actually, that may not be a bad thing. Only having 5 people, it's probably easier to monitor things. Yeah. But this is where, again, the SQF code is a little more forgiving, where it says that where practical, staff shall be independent. But I think it was Tim mentioned or Duncan mentioned earlier about you may have to engage an outside set of eyes to help you with that goal. With some of my clients, I am their internal auditor. Okay. Mm-hmm. And probably not a great setup, but they're small. I don't do all of their work, obviously. I will go in and do maybe a section or 2 to help keep things, real, so to speak. But you may very well have to have, engage an outside pair of eyes to help with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, absolutely. And so part of this too then is the actual execution in itself, right? So you set up your schedule, you have your teams, you assign the different elements. People go out and perform the audits. Part of that training then too, and I think this is what people need to realize, is that you're also looking at elements within the system too. So as they're pulling up a document and looking at, let's say under 2.2, the management review procedure and the form they fill out, and that the meetings are done every month and these type of things. You also need to be looking at the information on the document header, right? So is this document controlled? Do I have the correct version? Was it signed off on? How were these people trained who are doing these type of things, right? So you can cross-reference these other things, right? And that's something that you should work into your training with your teams.
So what I'd like to bring up next is, well, let me shift gears here a little bit.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about the training part of it. If you're going to take training, I think it's beneficial. Now there are ISO based internal auditor courses available, and certainly it's better than taking nothing because it teaches you about concepts. But I think there's a bigger benefit to taking a food based, if you will, or a food designed internal audit course. And I know you mentioned at the top of the show, CFS has one coming up in May, and all of our courses now are virtual. We have this really nice training room at our office in Jersey. I'll probably never see it again. Everything now is virtual, and what we're finding is one of the biggest things clients are saying about virtual training is, wow, I just saved $1,000 in travel expenses.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. I don't know if you want to pop up the link now, or we can do it later, whatever's easier.
So Renee, my assistant, is monitoring this. And so Renee has a link to the course that Joe just talked about. So Renee, when you get a chance, if you can pop that into the chat, that would be great. So everybody's got that.
Let's talk about the practical. It's been an early morning.
Gotta get that coffee.
I soon. What I'd like to speak with is, what are the benefits of a solid internal audit program? And my last appearance here with you, Bryan, and I tend to remember certain things in life, and one of them was, we were talking about food safety culture, and how do you measure your fruit? And one of the things that I said was, one of the many ways to assess it is your audit scores. And I'm looking at Corey, and Corey popped something in, and she said, and I will never forget this. So Corey, thank you. Audit scores have nothing to do with how safe your product is, because we know many, many facilities out there who score AA's and 97s and 98s that have, big old recalls going on. So, and thank you for, and it's something that, like, you don't forget certain things in your time, and that was one of them.
Absolutely.
But what are the benefits of? She's smiling. What are the benefits of a drop dead, kick-ass internal audit program? And there's many of them, right? Probably first and foremost, it's going to lead. It can't do anything but lead to a higher level of food safety. Okay, from a practical approach. So many times when I go into a facility, I'll review their internal audit program, and of course, everything's lumped into like 3 days before the audit, so I know this was like a big rush job, and everything is compliant, fine, perfect, no issues. And I look at them, and I get a little. I don't act too New York too often, but I'll get a little New York with them, and I'll be like, you have the best internal audit program I've ever seen. You guys are spot on, fantastic. And they're like, yeah, thanks. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you're missing the sarcasm. Okay, if you're not being hyper critical of your programs during your internal audits, you're wasting everybody's time. Okay. This is your chance to find the things that are going to either A, lead to a food safety concern, or B, is going to cost you points on an audit. And I've always believed, as the auditee, never give the auditor the easy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Never give the auditor the oh, I missed my yearly water test. Never give the auditor the oh, my pest control services license is expired. Like, don't give them that stuff. I mean, and one of our topics here down the road should be audit preparation, because that for me could be a 4-hour presentation.
Yeah.
But if your internal audit program is thorough, and I mean critical, okay, sarcastic auditor, and critical, you should be finding everything. And if you have the opportunity to get outside eyes come in, whether it be from a sister facility, I have a place that I work with. They've got 3 facilities, 2 on Long Island, 1 in New Jersey, and they're constantly swapping people. And it's just a 2-hour drive. You know, one will come check, and then one will do the next monthly audit. Fine. It's just if it's thorough and it's done with a practical approach, the only outcome can be continual improvement.
Right. These internal audits are your canary in the coal mine, right? They are telling you whether or not your system, because nobody wants, right? We all talk about it, and nobody wants this, Joe. The quality system that sits on the shelf and looks pretty for the auditor when they come in, and you dust it off and you show the auditor. What a freaking waste of time, right? Who are you fooling, right? You're not fooling anybody. All you're doing is going for a score, right? Bob Garfield, when he was at SQF, used to say that all the time, right? If you're getting certified just to hang it on the wall, don't bother. You're wasting everybody's time, and you are, right? I agree. Your system needs to be alive, and it needs to be how you run your business, not how you develop a quality system for audits. And I think a lot of people miss that. And being able to go in and look critically at your systems, harder than any auditor, any external auditor ever would, it's a guarantee of success, right? And then being able to take that information and say, we audited this and we found these mistakes and we fixed these things and we were able to do this, and amazing, right? You get to promote that information to senior management, right? This should be part of your management review process, right? Here's our internal audit program. Here's how we're finding things. Here's what we corrected. Here's the things that are now better than we were, right? You're able to show senior management that, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, these guys are doing a great job, and I have a lot of confidence in what they're doing. Yeah. Because that's something as human beings that's hard for us to do, right? Is to admit mistakes, right? And say, oops, this document wasn't signed off on. Yeah. And to your point, the fish in the barrel stuff, right? The PCO certificate, the certification's out of date for your pest control guy, right? As an auditor, right, they love that stuff, right? Those are easy nonconformances and they're easy to write up. Yeah. And what benefit is that, right? There's no benefit to that.
Years back, I worked for a facility, and my site practitioner was on reported to me. And whenever he would do we had him spread out over the course of the year, and he would come in, all the records just were kept in a ginormous file cabinet in my office. And he would come in to my office with a chair and a desk, and he would just, within an hour, there was nothing but a sea of papers on my floor. Okay. And he's checking dates and looking for sign-offs, and did the PCQI sign it, to the point where I was trapped behind my own desk. And one day I said to him, I'm like, are you almost done? Like, he looks at me, he says to me, and this is a guy that worked for me. He's like, I'm done when I say I'm done. Okay. But you know what? We had a well-run program. I mean, I can't take it away from him. Now, if you're super critical on your approach to internal auditing, and you're, as you said, being real about it. Okay. What is the outcome? Well, the outcome is going to be there should be a boatload of nonconformances that you've identified. Okay. Yeah. We have to remember that we have to then address them. Don't just say, oh, I found this laundry list. Here we go. All right. This is really good. Yeah. Okay. I'm done. Well, no, you're not done. Well, I've assigned them to people to get done. Okay. Well, are they done? Mm-hmm. So we have to be sure that as part of the internal audit process, or process for my Canadian brethren, we have to be sure that we're assigning people to initiate, complete, and then what? Track the closure of those corrective actions. If an auditor looks at your internal audit checklist and they see under this section that you identify, I gave it a target due date of whatever, February 25th. All right, and here it is April, and the auditor's in doing your audit, and they see that open with no reasons documented for the extension, it should be a nonconformance. Because now you've committed to something, I'm going to get it done by then. I didn't get it done, it'll get done soon. Well, no, document what? Perhaps, one of the big things now, especially with all the supply chain issues we're seeing, I've been through a rash of facilities lately where door sweeps are in short supply. I don't know what's driving it, what boat it's sitting on in Long Beach Harbor. There's a rash with door sweeps and dock seal brushes. They're just in short supply right now. Okay. If you say you're going to complete it by February 25th, and here it is February 26th, and it's not done, it's okay. If you're at the mercy of a supply chain issue, okay. I mean, there's probably temporary repairs that you can put in and that's a whole nother topic. All right. But don't leave it open and undocumented. Document the reasons why you might need to have an extension. And that's acceptable. Don't leave it blank.
Exactly. Well, it's the same reason why you go through your SQF audit, the auditor finds nonconformances, you have to close those out, right? You can't move forward until you close those out, and they have to be closed out to the satisfaction of the auditor, right? All right. Yeah, we had this broken glass pane in the warehouse. Here's some pictures of the new window. It's all installed and everything is good, right? You have to close them out. You can't let them float around in the ether forever.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Joe.
Reading some of these comments. A lot of smart people here today.
Yeah, we're getting some really good commentary, guys. I hope everybody is reading through this chat because, I mean, what's in here is gold. I mean, everybody's making some really good points here. So I've been reading through this as we get these. I'm not seeing any questions. So definitely refer back to these in the experience, right? Cross-referencing and cross-pollinating is super valuable. Which brings me to my next point with your internal audit program is that cross-pollination within the facility. It's human nature to look at what other people do and minimize it, right? The procurement person, all they do is sit in their office and buy stuff all day long, and vendors come and take them out to fancy lunches. Man, it'd be great to be, working in procurement. And the maintenance guys, right? All the maintenance supervisor does is sit in his office, and maybe he'll come out and do some stuff if I bug him enough. But man, I wish I worked in maintenance, right? Everybody's job is always easy, right? They look at us in quality and do the same thing and say, oh, the quality guys, all they do is, complain and tell people what they do wrong. I wish I worked in quality, right? Your internal audit program is an opportunity for your team members to put on the glasses and see things from the perspective of their other team members. Right?
Absolutely.
So if I'm going out and I'm working in procurement and I'm auditing the maintenance program, I'm looking at how the PM system works and how things are scheduled and how emergencies are handled and following through that procedure, I walk away from that with a greater understanding of how they do their job and respect for that. Right now, I walk away going, man, that maintenance team, geez, I didn't realize how much stuff those guys do. Holy moly. Right?
Yeah, it's one of those moments when you go, boy, I thought my job was brutal. Then I hung out with the maintenance department for 5 months. It's all yours. You can have it. Absolutely.
Exactly. And so everybody then goes into the management meetings with a different perspective, and it helps build the team.
Absolutely. And there's lots of benefits to all of that, not just different eyes will see things differently, not just the camaraderie as you mentioned. But I do think that having empathy for your coworkers makes for a better team. Look, here's the deal. We spend more time at work than we do at home. All right. Even if you work from home, you still spend more time at work than you do, at home.
Yes.
And that's just the nature of life. So if I can have a sense of camaraderie with my coworkers, I can tell you right now, I've got two of my colleagues on the line, and I'll say to them, but publicly, I've never worked with two better people. Okay, did you guys hear that, by the way? It's important. No, and I'm serious. It's important to develop that sense of we're in this together. We're either gonna do really well together, or we're gonna suck really bad together.
Yeah.
And it's just if I can appreciate what sales goes through, if I can appreciate what accounting and finance goes through, and purchasing, HR, days to be an HR manager, God bless, because number one, you can't find people that want to work, and number two, there's 4,500 different law. So if everybody, shares a little bit of that experience with each other, getting off the soapbox, that leads to a better internal audit experience,
right?
Which in turn, as we said, leads to a better food safety culture, a better long term. We're in this. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and we'll have a higher level of food safety compliance down the road.
Absolutely. And so this people side, again, is I think, something that gets overlooked. And so part of this, right, is building that cross-reference point for appreciation for other people. But again, this is another reason why, as the head of the internal audit program, so the quality manager, whoever it may be, understanding those people dynamics. So let's say you have two department heads who don't like each other. Okay, well, you can't change that. Do you want them auditing each other's stuff? No, right? Because they're probably going to go in there with an axe to grind or a grudge, and they're going to unfairly evaluate those procedures. You don't want that either.
Right. I agree, and that's where you just have to all, just work together, and we're all here for the same reason. The goal of every business, there is only one goal of every business, and that's to make money. Okay, and how we do that, has to be done ethically and within morals and boundaries, and but there's no axis to grind. It's like they said in The Godfather, it's not personal, it's just business, right? So I'm half Italian, so I have to quote The Godfather. But working together, team, you get to experience, and Duncan hit the nail on the head. It's collaboration. It's all about collaboration.
Yep. And Austin is ahead of me as usual. He just made the point I was going to make. We're talking food safety culture, aren't we?
Yep. Everything
all this stuff works together.
Listen, and I'm gonna say something, and maybe we can keep it amongst the 100 of us here who are on this call. I've always questioned why in SQF and BRC, why we have to even evaluate food safety culture as a separate line item. You either have it in place or you don't. Okay. And, you'll know by the management commitment, and you'll know by the program maintenance, and you'll know by the tour around the facility, and you'll know by, whether you're accompanied by one person for the 2-day, 3-day audit, or is there a team with. There's so many things that go into food safety culture that, and we talked about this at the last presentation. It's not banners and balloons and streamers and T-shirts and a pizza lunch. It happens 24/7.
Right.
And it has to start. It has to start with senior management. Mm-hmm. And Austin's right. I don't know how you can, and I've been to some seminars and presentations about food safety culture, and it's if you're hitting all cylinders and it's seamless and it's effortless, to me that's of more value and of more importance than the dog and pony show that sometimes is forced to happen.
Right.
No.
Yeah. There's a saying I put in a presentation I recently did that's 100% true and relates to this, is that documents don't do things, people do. Mm-hmm. Right? If you think that just because you write something up that people are going to do it, oh man, are you in for a rude awakening? Yeah. And a lot of times in quality, we think we're Moses writing stuff on the tablets, coming down from the mountaintop, and that everybody's going to do it. No,
you're absolutely right.
Right. And your internal audit program is going to find that really, really quickly if you've got a good one.
But and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think everybody understands the value of the internal audit. As I said earlier, it matters less. The approach to it is as important as the outcome. Okay, what tool you use, it doesn't matter. You can dig a hole with a spoon or a shovel. Either way, you're going to dig a hole. Okay,
Yeah.
What's more efficient? What works better for your operation? That's up to you. So the goal is what's important, not as much as how you get there. Okay, you can do your internal audit program with 35 different checklists, or you can do your internal audit program with one. It doesn't matter as long as the outcome meets the goal of not just the audit scheme, but of maintaining food safety.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better. That's a great way to bring this home. So hopefully, guys, we've been able to share with you an area of grief within programs, right? It's a lot of work, it's a lot of headache, but hopefully we've been able to convey that this is not a dry program where you're just sitting in an office and reading through documents and making sure that things match up. No, this is a really, really important part of your SQF system. And I know, and I'm sure you can back this up too, Joe, is it's a leading indicator of whether or not a system is actually implemented or whether it's just for show.
Absolutely.
And you need to have a vibrant system. It's more important than ever. And if you want to make it to that next level of food safety and quality with your customers, you have to have a good internal audit program, period. You have to.
No doubt. No doubt.
So let's close on that note. And by the way, everybody, go back through these comments. There haven't been a lot of questions necessarily, but the comments that people have been leaving here, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to this. This is what makes us all better, right? Is these comments are amazing. So thank you for joining us. And next week, of course, we'll be back on next Friday for the next food safety chat. And that will, of course, be at the same time. So 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday, the 18th of February. Wow, already we're moving forward through the month. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Friday. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Oh, almost forgot to thank my sponsor, EAS Consulting. Thank you for sponsoring the program. And they have a training program as well. So if you're interested in some training from EAS, you can go to easconsultinggroup.com/training and check out their training programs. And if you put Bryan in checkout, BRYAN, you get a 15% discount on that training. So we all have to sharpen the saw. We all have to improve our skills and take advantage of that. And check out Joe's course. He's an amazing teacher, and you're going to learn a ton from him. So definitely go out there and
appreciate it.
You betcha. Everybody have a great weekend again, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next Friday.
Take care, folks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.